Okay, so good afternoon, welcome. This is Kemi Adeosun and we're live on Facebook. This is my first Facebook live event, and I guess the first thing I'd like to do is just apologise that we're running late. We had a few technical issues with internet connectivity, but we're up and running, and I'm really looking forward to this. We're taking questions live on both Twitter and on Facebook, and as I said, this is my first Facebook live. I'm newbie to Facebook Live, but I think it's a great way of interacting with people, and I think it's something I'd like to do much more of as time goes on. I'm going to start by just telling you very briefly a few things that have been happening within the Ministry of Finance and a few of our new initiatives, just to keep you up and running on what's really going on with the Nigerian economy. And then I'll just take questions and we'll have an interactive session. So I think the first thing to say is that the Ministry of Finance has been fairly busy in the last year or so. As you all know, this is quite a difficult time for the country. We've seen our main source of revenue really eroded, and that's created a lot of very painful adjustments in the economy, which we're working through. But the good news is that we're working through the issues one by one, and we're trying to ensure that as we rebuild the economy, we get away from the boom and bust of the past, because the booms go when the oil price is high, we boom, we're all happy, and when the oil price is low, it's quite a miserable time to be a Nigerian. And we want to build an economy where, whether oil price is high or oil price is low, there's a sustainable growth for Nigeria and for Nigerians. And to do that, we've had to change our focus to make sure that we invest in the infrastructure that is needed to get this economy going. And people have asked us, why is infrastructure so important? And I use a very simple example. If you take two entrepreneurs with identical skills, let's say they make cakes, one's a Nigerian, one's from another country. Without an adjustment in our infrastructure, in 3 years' time, the one in any other country will be doing better than the Nigerian. And that's because the Nigerian has so many barriers to being able to grow his or her business, whether it's providing your own power, providing your own water, basically being a one-woman or one-man local government, whereas your competitor abroad has power just at the flick of a switch, has water by turning on a tap, has great roads, has good transport network, and therefore their business will typically have lower costs than the Nigerian business, and so we can't compete. We're not competitive because our costs are too high. And what government is trying to do is to adjust these barriers, this infrastructure that's holding us back, get those infrastructures in place so that business can thrive. The other big barrier is what we're calling the ease of doing business, which the Minister of Trade and Industry is working very hard on, which is the costs of doing business. The various government agencies that come when you want to open a business and say, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this. All these are costs that are also loaded on. And then at the end, you find that the end product of the Nigerian business is not quite as good as his competitor because he has so many barriers and the costs are too high. So we're not competitive. So we're trying to change that paradigm and make Nigeria's businesses competitive so that they can create jobs. Because there is a link between the products and services that we buy. If we buy Nigerian, we are basically creating Nigerian jobs. And so we need to create that enabling environment. So really the Ministry of Finance, as I say, is working very hard. So far we've released about ₦1 trillion capital. We're doing airports and roads and power and rail for the first time all across the country. And these are things that are really going to move the needle in terms of our economy. Take, for example, the coastal railway, which is going to go from Cross River, through rivers, through Abia, through Delta, Edo, Bayelsa, most of the east, most of the southeast. Being able to travel from those areas by rail, instead of having to go on our terrible roads, it's going to make so many businesses viable. The speed with which products can get to market is going to improve our competitiveness hugely. And those type of projects are being replicated across the country. So we think that there's great calls for optimism in the medium term as we get things going. So as I say, we've released ₦1 trillion so far for capital. We intend to keep up that pace of doing about 30% of our budget for capital. Now, to do that, as you know, we've been out in the markets. We've done the Eurobond, we've done two now at $1.5 billion. And that's been very exciting for us because Nigeria hasn't borrowed internationally since 2013. We've recognised that there's not enough money in Nigeria for the kind of infrastructure we need to do. We do need to go outside and borrow, but we need to borrow as cheaply as possible. So we've approached the World Bank, China, Exim, and some of the concessional lenders who lend as low as 1.5%, and then we'll blend that with the money that we took from the Eurobond market, which is now 7.5%. But these monies are long-term, 15 years, and that's how long we then have to make sure that these projects that we use the money to fund actually make an impact on the economy in terms of growth and taxes. Some of the other initiatives that you might be interested in are the things like the whistleblower unit, which actually started in the Ministry of Finance. It was a Ministry of Finance initiative. We initially thought that we were going to just use it for FIRS and Customs and some of the agencies under the Ministry of Finance. But when the presidency saw the work that we had done, they decided it should be a national policy, and it's been very, very successful. It's not just about recovering money, it's also about deterrence. One of the things we found out is that where money has gone missing, people knew about it, people knew what was going on, but they were either scared to talk or there was no incentive for them to talk. So the good thing about being the whistleblower policy now is anybody who's stealing has to work out, among the people who know about what I'm doing, is one of them ready to blow the whistle? And that's a deterrent. That stops people, makes people stop and think about what they're doing. We've had some very interesting tips. We have a unit here that are full-time on the whistleblower work. And they go out to investigate some of the tips that we receive, and it's interesting the range of sources of tips and the sorts of information of people, you know, storing money in wells, storing money in freezers, and all sorts of things, and diversion of money. But we follow up each one quite diligently to make sure that where government money has been siphoned or misapplied, we recover it. Development Bank of Nigeria is another very interesting initiative that we flagged off last week. We finally got the license. That's really very important for the SMEs. SMEs represent about 45% of our business. So the majority of people who have a job in Nigeria actually work for an SME, a company that has 7 staff or less. Now, SMEs, even though they're 45% of the economy, only about 10% of them have access to bank funding. And those that do find it very, very expensive, very, very difficult to get a bank loan because you're being asked for collateral, which typically they don't have, and they can't meet the conditions. And that money that's available, especially from microfinance banks, is very, very expensive. We found microfinance banks charging as high as 10% a month, which when you annualise is 120% a year. So what DBN is doing is it's a wholesale bank that will lend to qualified microfinance banks. Those microfinance banks will then lend to SMEs, but at an approved rate. So it's going to bring down the cost of funds to MSMEs. It's also going to make the conditions for accessing the funds a lot easier. And we think that that will really, really transform the SME sector. We've seen similar projects in other countries. We're being supported in this by the World Bank and the ADB and the European Investment Bank, as well as KfW. That's the German development agency. They're supporting us in this. And they've done this in other countries and seen what a transformatory effect it's had on the SMEs. So DBN is a very, very important initiative. And then there are ones you know about, like the efficiency unit that go around cutting the costs of government. We now have discounts from a number of airlines. We now have restricted what people can spend on lunch and on tea breaks, and all the things where money was being wasted we've tried to rein in. Another unit is the Presidential Initiative on Continuous Audit, who largely just work on payroll, removing dead people from the payroll, removing fraudulent entries from the payroll. All this is really just to make sure, I mean, it's not that we're witch hunting anybody, it's really just to make sure that the money that's available is used judiciously. We have a lot of very, very important projects that we need to fund. So we can't afford to waste money, and we can't afford to have money stolen. So that's really the focus of those initiatives, so that we make sure that the projects that we need to fund, there is money to fund them. And that's a really key priority. So that's the end of my little welcome. I guess there are lots and lots of questions, and I'll take them as they come in. Thank you. Okay, so there's a question from, is it Maisie Lord? And it says, how effective is the economic management team working to steer the nation away from the economic recession? And then Gideon Kinka says, what are you doing for youth to have access to funds? And number 3 is from Greg Mpara, who says, what are you doing to improve non-oil revenues? Now, all good questions, so I'll take them one by one. How effective is the economic management team working to get us out of recession? I mean, I think it's a really good question, but it must be answered by rewinding. How did we get into recession? We got into recession because for the last 10 years, even when oil price was extremely high and we were borrowing and our reserves were decreasing, the Nigerian economy actually wasn't growing. In if you check the rate of GDP growth, it was actually trending negatively, even when oil price was very high. So we've actually been heading in this direction for 10 years. And what are the causes of the recession? The causes are we didn't have enough of a productive economy. The only real thing that was happening that was creating growth was the oil price. And as soon as the oil price went down, growth disappeared. So what we're trying to do now is reset the economy so that we're not so dependent on oil. We have other sectors that can grow, like agriculture. Because, you know, when the money from oil, when oil was $110 a barrel, it was very easy for us to get dollars, import rice, import chicken, import apples, import things that we could be making here. But because the money was available, it was actually cheaper to import. But actually, the impact of that was destroying the fabric of the economy. It meant that nobody needed to open factories and create jobs because all you needed to do was import things. Now, as soon as the oil price went down, and remember it went as low as $28 a barrel, the economy began to really suffer extreme stress, and that's how we ended up in recession. But the important thing is, what are we doing to get out of it? It's all the things I've outlined, focusing on the infrastructure that will be needed to make business grow. There's so many things we have in Nigeria. If you go the length and breadth of the country, you'll be amazed at the resources, natural resources, sapphire, gold, industrial capacity that we have, but we don't have the right power provision. Agricultural capacity that we have, things that we've been importing that we could grow, like wheat. We've always imported flour, but wheat and milled it here, but actually we can grow flour here very successfully. And you've seen the success of things like rice, the Kemi rice project, the rice projects in Ebonyi. In the past, we always imported rice. We'd buy the bag, Thai premium rice. That's Thailand rice. Now we're having Kemi rice. And so we're doing a lot that is really changing the paradigm of the Nigerian economy. And the good news is these are permanent changes that are going to create jobs. Jobs for our people, not jobs for other, countries. So that leads me to the second question. What are we doing to get youth having access to finance? We've done a few things. DBN is one, which is very, very important because most young people will start as small businesses. So making sure that small businesses have access to money cheaply and quickly through the Development Bank of Nigeria is very, very important. Then another thing that we've done is revived a project that we inherited called UWIN. Now, the UWIN project that we inherited was a project that gave grants to people to start businesses, and it was quite a successful project. However, what we found was 18,000 people applied. Only, I think, about 3,000, I believe it's 3,000 actually won. And those people were given grants of up to 10 million naira each. Now, that's great if you won, but if you didn't win, it's not too good because you don't have any other source of money. And so what we felt was, when we looked at these people that had won, and some of them were very successful, a lot of them had not been able to attract any other funding than the grants. So they were still dependent on the grant, and we felt that wasn't sustainable. So we've gone back to basics. What are the things that young entrepreneurs need to be able to attract money? Because there's a lot of money. CBN has money for MSMEs, banks have money for SMEs, even investors. Average person is looking for a good business to invest in. But what a lot of young entrepreneurs lack are the skills. So what UWIN has done is gone back and said, let's build the skills. So we started with 6 newspapers. We're in these newspapers every week. We're moving into radio and television, and it's enterprise education, teaching people how to do business, how to write a business plan, how to understand your costs, and then profiling successful people, most of whom, young people incidentally, didn't get a grant. Some of them started business with as little as 1,000 naira, and they're doing extremely well. So we don't think it's really about the money, it's actually about the skills. If people have the skills, the money will come, but we have to build the skills. So that's the UWIN, we call it UWIN Connect, and as I say, already it's on in 6 newspapers, so Nation, Punch, Vanguard, Trust, Independent, and I've forgotten the last one, but it's in 6 newspapers. And it's either on a Sunday or on a Wednesday, but we're then going online and we're going into radio and television, teaching people about business. Because if you go to countries that are very successful in business, they have radio stations about business, TV stations about business. So we need to actually immerse ourselves in enterprise education. And we'll be moving out into the campuses as well to go and talk to young people about the prospect of starting their own business rather than having to look for a job, which for some people can be extremely frustrating. But in terms of funding in UWIN, what we're doing is with the remaining money, rather than giving one person a grant of 10 million, we're taking equity in businesses through a venture fund. So you come to us with a good idea, you need maybe 2 million to start it up, we might say, okay, we'll give you 1 million, go raise the other 1 million, but we'll take a percentage in your business. And when you grow your business, you can buy government out, give us our money back and move on. That's the next stage. Once we start the education, once we complete the education side of it, we'll be starting the funding. And the other question from Greg was, what are we doing to improve non-oil revenues? The answer is absolutely everything. One of the real challenges we have in Nigeria is actually oil is only 10% of our economy, but it's about 80% of government revenue. And the big challenge for us is that other 90% of the economy, why is it contributing so little? So we're plugging all the leakages. And on a daily basis, we're working with the various agencies that collect money for government, be it FIRS, be it Customs, be it some of the agencies, NAFDAC, NCC. We're making sure that those leakages that are allowing the money to go in and leak out are blocked, or those controls that are such that people are not even bothering to pay. Working very, very hard on that. That's one of the key objectives of this administration, to make sure that we're not so dependent on oil. And there was a lot of leakage. Take, say, passport fees. We had a meeting yesterday with CG Immigration, and there were some arrangements that were made where some companies were taking as much as 78% of some of the charges for visas and passports. So we've sat them down, we're negotiating with them and saying, this is not acceptable, this is government money, it needs to come into the Nigerian government treasury. The thing is, when you have oil, that small money looks so small, but for us now, every naira counts. So we're really focusing on getting every single naira into the kitty. I'm being given another set of questions now, so you can see this is live. Okay, so Greg Solomon said, what is the government doing to improve the UWIN program? I think I've answered that question, but I'm happy to talk about UWIN because I really like the UWIN program. Then Ishak Babani says, what is the amount of the federal government wage bill, overhead, and how is the government coping? That's a great question. And then Sylvester Opefe, I think, is it wise to kill UWIN just for a few people? Oh, UWIN is very popular. So let me talk about UWIN. We have not killed UWIN, and I repeat, not killed UWIN. And I've explained what we did. So when we came in, UWIN was already running. Some people who, back in 2014, had been already approved. And what we said is, if you've already been approved, carry on and we'll meet our commitments to you. What happened, unfortunately, recently, last week, was a whistleblower sent some information and said, look, in this batch, there's about 600 million naira to be approved for, I think it's about 145 people. I'll get the numbers correct shortly. Sent an anonymous letter and said, look, in this batch that you're about to approve, there's a son of some of your directors, there are husband and wife couples who are not actually in business, that colluded with people in the team to win the grant. And so immediately, of course, I had to stop that batch of payments to say, let's investigate these claims. Unfortunately, what we didn't know was that the same person had leaked the same information to the press, so it ended up on the front page of Punch. So of course we must investigate. If we have credible information that is wrongdoing, we must investigate, and that's all we've done. So for that batch of payments, we've said, hold on, we need to look. Those who there is suspicion of, we need to pull them out of the batch and then send them off for investigation. So in the meantime, we put everybody on hold. As soon as that investigation is complete, those that we don't have any issue with will pay. Those we have an issue with will have to refer to the investigative agencies as is procedure. So the answer is, we did not kill UWIN. In fact, we've revived UWIN and it's better than ever. UWIN Connect is incredibly popular. A lot of people send us information, especially over social media, saying how much they enjoy the profiles in particular of the entrepreneurs that we've been showcasing, and how much they're learning that's helping them to get ready for going into the world of business. And we just think that the UWIN Connect model, which is really about enterprise education, it's about learning how to do a business. You'd be amazed that a lot of people think that naturally they know how to do a business. I hear a lot of people say, oh, just give me the money. But the truth is, money is the last thing you need. You need an idea, You need to know what your costs are. You need to know who your competition are. You need to have a marketing strategy. You need to have a clear idea of what your business model is. You need to have a clear idea of where your risks are. You have a clear idea of what could go wrong. You need to have a clear growth path. That's all enterprise education. Money comes last. And we have looked and found a number of businesses, and we'll begin to profile them. There's a great lady who will be coming on soon who started her business with 1,000 naira. So it's a myth that, oh, what I need is money. It's not correct. And indeed, we found many people who got the money have failed. Good idea, good work ethics, understanding your business is far, far, far more valuable than the money. So we didn't kill YouWin. We've resurrected it as YouWin Connect. And so far, it's been incredibly popular among all the people that have followed it. And we hope you'll join. Ishak said, what's the amount of the wage bill? Well, when we started, the wage bill was 165 billion a month, and it's huge. And just to put it in context, 165 billion a month compared to, say, the works, power works and housing, maybe for the whole year we've released maybe 200 billion, 220 billion for the year, and yet we spend 165 a month on salary. So just to give you a sense that it's a huge, huge bill. And then we have about 16 billion for pensions, and then another 15 billion for overheads. So really, in any month, by the time we add transfers, statutory transfers to agencies like the Judiciary, the National Assembly, INEC, and the statutory agencies, we need about 200 billion every month before we have anything to spend on capital. So we set a priority that we need to control that expense, and that's where PICA, the Presidential Initiative on Continuous Audit, came in. We started cleaning up the payroll, making sure that anybody who's getting paid exists, is being paid the right amount, that there's no fraud, there's no error in the payroll. So far, I think we've moved about 53,000 people from the payroll. At the moment, we're working with the PENCOM to recover some of the pension, because the problem with these bloated salary earners is that not only are we paying their salary, we're also paying pensions. So we're trying to recover some of the overpaid pensions on some of the people that we've removed from their payroll. But it's a continuous battle. And the real key is using technology to make sure that we're paying people using IPPIs, which is a biometric system, which ensures that you can't get two salaries, which ensures that you know, the number of the person in the bank account is the same person on the payroll. It gives us automation. We found that really, really helps us to eliminate a lot of duplications on the payroll. So our focus now is getting as many agencies and individuals as possible onto IPPIs. We've set ourselves quite an ambitious target. We're working towards it. We're nearly finished with the police now. Then we'll move on to the military and the prisons and immigration and agencies like that, and get them onto IPPIs. So, because what we found is every time we bring an agency onto IPPIs, the actual wage bill goes down. So that's really what we're doing to try and control. Another batch of questions is coming. Thank you. I won't tell you what's written here, but it says conclusion. So I guess I have to thank you all for joining me on my first Facebook Live. It's been good fun. It's a bit strange talking into a phone, I've got to say, but I mean, hey, this is modern technology at work. And thank you all for your great questions. I think all the questions have been first rate, and look forward to seeing you again. Thank you. Smile.